Welcome and thank you for standing by. Currently, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to your host for today, Crystal Jimerson.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar, Renter, Owner, Investor. Learn more about how to access key housing data. I am Crystal Jimerson, a training specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau. I want to thank you for joining us today for the Topics, Tools, and Data to Use webinar series. These webinars are a great opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access the Census Bureau data, tools, and resources. If you wish to follow along, take a moment now to open an additional browser. You can also register for any of the webinars by visiting census.gov/academy. Before I introduce today's speakers, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be uploaded to our Census Academy site with all supplemental materials relating to the webinar within 30 business days. We welcome written questions during the webinar. Please submit your written questions using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom center or the right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you found the Q&A panel, make sure you choose all panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. We suggest keeping the chat panel open as we will provide key links and other resources throughout the webinar. Keep in mind you won't be able to respond to the chat. That is for us to send out links and other resources related to the presentation. My colleagues will be monitoring the Q&A panel, and as time allows, we will answer your questions directly through the Q&A panel, or we will share your question with the presenters to respond to during the webinar. If we do not get to all of your questions with a response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar materials on the census.gov/academy site within 30 business days. As you know, we are in a virtual environment and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser, such as Firefox, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you are having audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. Now I would like to introduce you to our speakers, Ileana Serrano and Jolie Golden. Thanks again for being here today. Ileana, you may begin.
Great. Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar. And thank you for joining us to learn more about accessing U.S. Census Bureau data on housing. Today, we hope you will discover how U.S. Census Bureau data and our data access tools can help you find free data for your community. Learn how to access the latest American Community Survey data at data.census.gov and access housing data from the economic surveys and programs for various geographies with the visualizations that act as mini data tools. This session will feature live demonstrations, and we will share links in the chat as we progress. Also, as Crystal mentioned, the PowerPoint will be posted on census.gov/academy. So what are we going to be covering today? We will present an overview of selected housing data from our surveys and our programs. And we will share live demonstrations using our Census Data Access tool and visualizations. From the economic side of the Census Bureau, we will look at select economic survey data on housing. And finally, allow some time for a question and answer session. Okay, so now I would like to introduce you to your presenters. Welcome, Jolie.
Thank you so much, Ileana. So my name is Jolie Golden. I'm a data dissemination specialist based in New York City. I cover New York City and Long Island as part of our New York region. I'm one of 25 data dissemination specialists who are here to help you across the country. I was a partnership specialist in 2020 for 2.5 years and have been in this role since 2022. My job is to help people to answer data questions and find the data they need, whether that's presenting to a large organization or helping an individual. How about you, Eliana?
Thanks, Jolie. Well, like Jolie, I too am a data dissemination specialist, but I am based in Illinois and I provide data support to Illinois and Indiana data users. Now, I have been with the Bureau for some time and have participated in 3 decennial censuses. And actually, I cut my teeth on surveys, namely the survey of income and program participation, and spend a lot of time in the special census program. So now I am sharing my insights and understanding how to locate data and helping our data users navigate our site, understand our data, and our data access tools. All right, so now that we have gotten the introductions out of the way, let's see where our housing data comes from. So from our surveys and programs, we'll start with decennial data. So every 10 years, the U.S. Census Bureau conducts a census to determine the number of people living in the United States and the number of housing units. The data provides detailed demographic and housing characteristics about the nation and local communities, such as the household type, whether it's a family or non-family housing unit or household, and tenure, whether the home is owned or rented. Then we have the American Community Survey, or ACS as it's better known, which is an ongoing survey that provides vital information on a yearly basis about our nation and its people, including housing characteristics. Okay, and the Current Population Survey, or CPS. This survey is sponsored jointly by the U.S. Census Bureau and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it is the primary source of labor force statistics for the population of the United States. Now, you may be wondering, what does the Current Population Survey have to do with housing? Well, the CPS is used to collect data for a variety of subjects and topics by adding a set of supplemental questions to the monthly basic CPS questionnaire. And one of these supplements is the Housing Vacancies and Home Ownership Survey. And last but not least is the American Housing Survey, and that is AHS. This survey is sponsored by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD, and is conducted by the U.S. Census Bureau. The AHS is the most comprehensive national housing survey in the U.S. Okay, so we have so much housing data that it would be kind of impossible to cover everything in the allotted time today. However, we wanted to provide highlights of some of the more pertinent surveys that collect the information. We just reviewed some housing information from our demographic surveys, and now we will review information from the economic side of the Census Bureau. So to begin with, we will talk about Building Permit Survey, or BPS, which provides national, state, and local statistics on new privately owned residential construction. National and regional data are available on the number of new housing units authorized by building permits. Authorized but not started, started, under construction, and completed. And the data are for new privately owned housing units, excluding the HUD code for manufactured mobile homes. Then we have the Survey of Construction, or SOC. This survey provides current national and regional statistics on starts, completions, and characteristics of new privately owned single-family and multifamily housing units, and on the sales of new single-family houses. For those interested, the Survey of Construction data are available monthly and annually for housing starts, along with an annual microdata file that can be found on the SOC, or Survey of Construction, webpage. Then we have the Manufacturing Housing Survey, or MHS. And this is sponsored by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, collected by the Census Bureau, and provides data on shipments, prices, and characteristics of new manufactured housing units. Monthly and annual data for manufactured housing for the Manufacturers Housing Survey can be found on the MHS webpage. And then we have Rental Housing Finance Survey. This survey collects data on the financial, managerial, and physical characteristics of rental properties nationwide. And we have a machine-readable data set discovery service that you can visit at the Discovery Tool page on census.gov to learn more. And finally, the Survey of Market Absorption, or SOMA. This survey collects data for new residential construction. Survey of Market Absorption, the reports provide information on amenities, rent, sale price levels, number of units, type of buildings, and the number of units taken off market. Those units that have been absorbed, if you will. Data tables are available on the SOMA webpage, as well as the Table Creator tool and through our API, or the Application Program Interface. All right, that was a lot, but we have a little bit more, and this is more specific. So what housing data is available from the decennial census? Well, there are housing counts and total numbers on housing units, including group quarters, or GQs. And you have access to vacancy status, occupancy status, and tenure, which tells you whether the housing unit was rented or owned. And there are several ways to access decennial data. We have releases, which you can subscribe to, reports, and various data tables on the decennial webpage. You can also access decennial data through our tools, such as data.census.gov, which gives you access to various tables, charts, and maps. And you have QuickFacts, which is our easiest tool that provides comprehensive profiles for several geographies, as long as the population of the area that you're looking at is 5,000 or higher. And then we have a visualization that acts as a tool, the Housing Unit Change Viewer, and other visualizations that can help you access decennial data. An example of a visualization that acts like a mini data tool is the 2020 Population and Housing Data Visualization. Okay, this is a state data visualization. It's pretty easy to use, and depending on the search parameters, you can view units per square mile, or density, show areas of high vacancy, and areas that have experienced a negative value. And there is another housing tool, which was developed by our geography department, that focuses on housing unit changes since 2020. So stay with us, and this tool will be demonstrated later in the webinar. But for right now, we are going to share with you a little demonstration. So to begin with, like I said, it's pretty easy to navigate this tool. Right now, we are looking at the national profiles, and you can change that to all core-based statistical areas. And it defaults to the population, but you can certainly change that by clicking on the housing panel, and it will repopulate for you. And you can look at all counties as well. On the right-hand side, there is a list that basically ranks the areas based on your selection. So for now, what I want to show you is, say you wanted more localized area information. I want to look at Washington State. So I go over to the right in that search engine, drop down and scroll, or you can even type in Washington and hit go. So now you have a visual of the state by county for Washington. And on the right-hand side, you have those. Right now, the last one that I clicked on was all CBSAs. So you have that ranking. of course, you can come over to the counties and it will re-rank or repopulate and show you the areas of your interest. So go back over to here, Washington, click go. And so now you have housing unit density, okay, for Washington counties. You can also look at the vacancy rates in 2020. So here you're looking at with those that had high density areas, namely up along the bay and in Spokane. But when you go to vacancy rate, you have a different perspective, okay? And as you hover over the counties, you are getting an interactive window that gives you additional data. When we come to the percent change in housing units 2010 to 2020, you get a different perspective. And here you can look at really the impact of the vacancies in Ferry County and down here in Garfield and also Okanagan. Different perspective depending on your variables chosen. So like I said, stay tuned for another view of another tool that can help you access housing unit data. All right, so we just learned what housing data is available from the decennial census. So now we will focus on what data is available from the American Community Survey, or the ACS. As part of the 66 questions on the American Community Survey, 44 of which cover housing, we ask about the use and cost of common utilities, any applicable condominium and mobile home fees, taxes, insurance, mortgages, and home loans to produce statistics about selected monthly owner costs. We also ask about whether a home is owned or rented to create statistics about home ownership and renters. Also asked are questions about the monthly rent amount or how much the home and property are worth to produce statistics about rent and home value. And we also ask questions about the units in the structures, the number of rooms, and the number of bedrooms to create data about housing types and housing density. Lastly, we ask questions about when a housing unit was built and when a person moved into that home to create statistics about housing age and availability. On the left side of the screen, you can see that from the question asked on the ACS, the questionnaire, multiple housing variables are available. And to the right of the screen, you see how those variables translate in the housing tables available on data.census.gov. The one that you are seeing here is a DP04, or a data profile, very comprehensive data on your selected topic, which would be the housing characteristics. Again, a sampling of where you can find housing unit data from the American Community Survey. Our primary data access tool is data.census.gov, which lets you see data tables, charts, and you can create your own visualization in terms of map. You can map your variable. You have QuickFacts, which provides for comprehensive profiles, such as the one you saw in the previous slides, for some geographies, I should say, those geographies that are higher than 5,000 in population. But then we also have our Microdata Access Tool, or MDAT, which allows you to create custom tables not available in the pre-made tables on data.census.gov. And this you can do without having to use your own statistical software or special programming. And lastly, we have the API. The API gives the public access to raw statistical data from various Census Bureau data programs. Okay, a lot you can do with that. And so now at this point, I will turn it over to Jolie.
Thank you, Ileana. So let's look at this. Let's switch gears and examine a data visualization which shows our population estimates program, where growth has occurred in cities from July 2023 to July 2024. While my hometown of New York, tops the chart for cities with the largest numeric increase, we can see here how prominently Texas is featured in both bar graphs. So let's take a look at some housing data from Texas. So here's Ernesto. Please meet him. He is considering moving to Texas and wants to compare housing data between Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. His budget is to buy a home under $299,000. Given median housing values, which cities are better options for Ernesto? Let's find housing data from the American Community Survey and compare the median housing value in each of the cities that Ernesto is considering. Okay, so here we are now that everyone can see. We're on the landing page of data.census.gov, which is the main data portal for census information. There's an incredible array of information here. I'm going to click on Advanced Search. As you can see, when I clicked on Advanced Search, a menu populated on the left. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to select the year that I'm looking for, which is 2023. That's the year that the most recent data was released for. The next thing, we know that Ernesto is looking for geographies in 3 cities in Texas. Our word for city or town or village all falls under place. So when I click on place, I can drill down, click on Texas, and now a large list of cities populates in Texas. I'm going to use this short search here at the top and load in, click on Austin. As I click on these different selections, they load in the filters on the upper left-hand corner of the screen. We wanted Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. So now my year and the 3 cities have populated. I'm going to scroll down and we're looking in topics under housing. So this is our category. When we click on it, there are lots of different choices. I'm going to go to financial characteristics and look at housing value and purchase price. This is the purpose of narrowing the number of tables. Once that populates in the lower right-hand corner, I click on search. And now I can access data from any of these 30 data sets. It's all free of charge. You can shop for data in any of these tables. I'm going to click on B25077, which shows the median value of housing. Up here, you could change the data set. You could download the data, share the link, go to our API. But for now, I just want to get rid of the margin of error. The margins of error are pretty low since these are larger geographies. And I can see here that Austin at $600,600 for median value is more than double the other 2 cities. So Ernesto is going to decide that he's going to focus in on Houston and San Antonio. So now that he's decided on looking at these 2 different cities in the Lone Star State of Texas, we're going to stay on data.census.gov and find the data profile tables for Houston and San Antonio to see more information about them. So I'm going to close out on the left of my filters of housing unit and purchase price. And I'm also going to close out of Austin because we're not looking at Austin anymore. And I'm going to go to surveys on the left-hand side, to American Community Survey. These are larger geographies. They're more than 65,000 in population, so I can access 1-year data. And I'll click on Data Profiles. And what this is going to do is this is going to give me some of those really deep data profile tables. I could click on any of them and see comparative information for Houston and San Antonio. I'm just reducing the margin of error. So here you can see in the housing table that we can see everything from the year the structure was built to the value, monthly owner costs, gross rent, and much more for these 2 cities. So now Ernesto's pivoting and he's thinking, well, maybe I'd like to consider median housing values in some counties in Arizona. So I'm going to show you a very different aspect of the tool. I'm going to clear it out by going up here on the upper left. This brings me back to the landing page and click on Maps. So we're going to select some counties in Arizona and populate the data from the map view. So I'm going to go to Boundaries because I want to make sure that I'm seeing county and place for city. I'm going to drill in just using my mouse. I'm zeroing in more to see, let's look at the Phoenix area. And I'm going to select a layer of the map. So in the layer section, I'm clicking on counties. And this now, using the select lasso tool at the top, allows me to select a number of counties. But when I select these counties, and I go back to the select tool, when I select these counties, there's no data populating in them. I'm going to go back to the topic of housing, financial characteristics, and housing value. And the tables will repopulate over here on the left again. I go to B25077. And now I can see a map. I can add more counties too using the select tool, but I'll stick to these. Maybe I'll add a few more. And you can see that some of my counties, one of my counties is grayed out. That means that it's lower than 65,000 population. If I want to see data for all of these counties, I'm going to switch to the 5-year data set. So there you go. And you can see the number in the legend on the left-hand side. So there are so many other things that we could do in data.census.gov, but I'd like us to get back to focusing on other housing information, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Ileana.
Thanks, Jolie. That demonstration really does show the versatility of the tool, the data access tool that you have at your hands. And remember, that is on our website and it's on 24/7. So you just saw a walkthrough of several ways to access data using ACS. And these on this sheet are some of the most often sourced American Community Survey tables related to the housing data on data.census.gov. We just took a look for Ernesto at DP04, which is at the top, and that is your data profile on the housing characteristics. And if you wanted to see comparative data over time, you can select the CP04, the comparative housing unit characteristics, and that table would give you a 5-year comparison. Just know that if you are searching on data.census.gov, you can load the table number in the general search area, and then the results will pop up for the nation. At that point, all you need to do is use your geography filters on the left-hand side of the tool to localize your data. Okay, so for a more analytical look at housing data, our America Counts stories share information related to trends in data, including housing. Here are 3 examples for you to find other stories using the housing topic on the America Counts page on census.gov. As a reminder, the links to each story will be dropped in the chat. Okay. So as a recap, aside from the labor force data, the current population survey collects data for a variety of studies in the form of supplements. And these are added to the original CPS questionnaire. One of these supplements is the Housing Vacancy Survey, which provides quarterly data on vacancy rates and characteristics of vacant units. The Housing Vacancies and Homeownership Survey data provides current information on the rental and homeowner vacancy rates and the characteristics of units available for occupancy. These data are used extensively by public and private sector organizations to reevaluate the need for new housing programs and initiatives. In addition, the rental vacancy rate is a component of the index of leading economic indicators and is used by the federal government and economic forecasters to gauge the current economic climate. Here is an example of the housing vacancy survey data for the second quarter of 2025, showing the national rental vacancy rate at 7.1, the national homeowner vacancy rate at 1.1%, and the national home ownership rate at 65.1%. And on the right is a time series graph of home ownership vacancy rates versus rental vacancy rates. And this was just released on the 28th. Next up is the American Housing Survey. AHS is a longitudinal housing unit survey conducted biannually in the odd-numbered years, with samples redrawn in 1985, 2015, and 2025. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is shifting to a continuous data collection model for the American Housing Survey and moving away from the previous periodic collection every other year that lasted 5 months. The new continuous data collection model is tentatively slated to begin in 2026. And data is available at the national level as well as for 29 major metropolitan areas. The next AHS will include content on arts and culture, home accessibility, climate risk, and insurance. And when searching for American housing data, you can use the American Housing Survey Table Creator. There is a video tutorial that provides a brief overview of the AHS and the Table Creator interface, as well as several demonstrations on how to create tables located on the AHS Table Creator webpage. So on the economic side of data, the Building Permit Survey, or BPS, provides national, state, and local characteristics on new privately owned residential construction. The data are available monthly, year-to-date, and annually at the national, state, county, and place level. And we have a visualization that lets you access and visualize the data collected from the Building Permit Survey. And speaking on this, it's a perfect segue to our next demonstration. Here we have Paul. Paul lives on the East Coast and is a residential carpenter looking for more work than what his local area has to offer. He can relocate to the site quickly and easily since he has a truck camper. So seeing as he wants to remain on the East Coast, he is looking for data on North and South Carolina and Georgia, where he hears that there is continuous building activity in the single-family home market for his selected geography. So I'm going to come over and give you a little walkthrough of the tool that he is going to be using to analyze the possibility of him traveling to a different geography to pursue work. So when you get to the tool, it will default to national data. And from the view, he is seeing that, of course, Texas is up there way at the top, followed by Florida and California. And these are the measures that the trend chart is showing. It's showing total units for all the years of data available at an annual base and for state geography. So as he is looking through these, he comes down here and he sees, oh, well, there's North Carolina. And coming further down, he sees Georgia. North Carolina is at an upward trend, but Georgia is down on a declining slope, or southern slope. And then he sees Arizona and New York, and there's South Carolina. kind of like a holding steady. So seeing that North Carolina is at the top 5, he wants to pursue that that route. So he is interested in single family housing. So he will come up to the tool in the measures and drop down and select single family housing. Okay, he can also do valuation, multifamily, and multifamily valuation, but he is single family unit interested. Now he does want to look at the last 5 years of available data, not the whole time series since it began. So in the year, he will deselect all the years and select the years for which he is interested in. And he's going to leave it at the annual rate, but of course he can do monthly and year-to-date period analysis if he so wanted, but he's just going to leave it at the annual rate. So now the chart is revealing that North Carolina, while Texas is on a downward slope and so is Florida, North Carolina has a slight increase. But as he comes down, he sees that Georgia is sloping downward and South Carolina holding steady. All right, so he is going to still pursue North Carolina. Okay, so curious about what he is seeing, he switches the measure from single family to multifamily. And so now he sees that North Carolina is still on the upward slope. The top 3 have changed. Okay, and then he sees Georgia is on a downward slope for multi-unit families, and South Carolina has kind of faded away. So gut instinct telling him that North Carolina is where he should be looking. This is where he is going to go, but he needs to narrow his search. And first to do that is to go to the county level of North Carolina. So Paul changes the measure back to single family homes, okay, and selects North Carolina for the state value on the right-hand side. So he will deselect all and scroll down to North Carolina. And then, of course, he needs to weed them out by county. So at the geographic type, he is going to change that to county level. Okay, so now he sees a different kind of a more localized trend for North Carolina. And Wake County bubbles up to the top, Mecklenburg, Brunswick, they're all headed upward, and Iredell is headed upward. Everybody else is kind of holding steady or on a downward trend. So he decides to investigate Wake County. Okay. So to explore further, Paul decides to look at places within Wake County. And he's looking again primarily at single family housing, and he still wants to keep it for the 5 years of available data, right? And now he's going to look at places. So at the state level, he verifies that it's still North Carolina. And then Paul changes the geographic type from county up at the top to place. Okay. So now this changes and he needs to select the county that he wants to look at. So on the right-hand side, using the drop down, he will deselect all and come down and select Wake. So now all the places in Wake County are populating the trend chart. Okay, and so Raleigh is up at the top. It's kind of in a downward slope, but here we have Apex Town and Garner and Wendell and Holly Springs. These are places that he can explore further that are on an upward trajectory. So this is really good information for him, but he also wants to look at additional information for the activity that's going on. So he can at this time under the measure, select valuation, multi-unit. But if he comes down to this down at the bottom, what looks like a spreadsheet, and he clicks on it, he is going to have access to all of that information and more in one location for Wake County. So you have Wake County, all the places in Wake County with building permit activity. And as he scrolls over, he sees the number of buildings, total units, value, single family, multi, so on and so forth. There's a lot of information that is useful for his decision making, but it is kind of hard to read scrolling back and forth. So to download to a spreadsheet, do not use the little black arrow. Come down to the bottom where you see the folder with the down arrow, and now you are able to download 3 different versions of what you are viewing. And I forgot to mention, in the 2020 population and housing visualization, you can do the same for the data that you are looking in terms of population and housing density. So we just saw how Paul used a visualization that featured building permit activity, but he may want to also explore data from the survey of construction. SOC reports on the starts, completions, characteristics of new homes, and sales of new private single and multi-family homes. And housing construction data is derived from the responses on the form SOC Q1. The form SOC Q1 for the survey of construction for single family and multi-family buildings is used to collect data on individual houses and buildings that were selected for the survey of construction sample. Data collected includes your start date, completion date, sales price, but only for single family houses, and the physical characteristics of each structure. Do you know how many homes constructed in 2024 have 4 bedrooms or more? How about the average price of new homes sold in 2024? This visualization, which is very interactive, highlights annual data from the survey of construction. And we invite you to visit this visualization and interact with it to view the various data points available. Okay, so now I will turn it over to Jolie, who will demonstrate the Housing Unit Change Viewer tool.
It is my great pleasure to introduce you to one of our newest tools, which was created by our geography department. The Census Bureau tracks housing changes across the country. Using the Housing Unit Change Viewer, you can track city growth, land use, and population shifts. You can find detailed housing data down to the census tract and block group levels, which reveal where new homes are being built. Zoom into your community on this tool to see how the community landscape is changing in terms of housing between 2020 and 2024. These housing statistics are updated twice annually, and the initial 2020 statistics are based upon 2020 census decennial data. So now let's meet Betty. Betty's niece is moving to Brooklyn and will be looking for housing. To easily see where new housing has been created in Kings County, New York, also the borough of Brooklyn, Betty can use the Housing Unit Change Viewer. So let's go to the tool. Now we're on the landing page of the tool. The default view shows the percent change in housing units by state, with the dark green indicating a higher percentage of housing units added since the 2020 census. If we zoom over to New York and zoom into Kings County, so I'm using my mouse here, but you could use the plus symbol or minus symbol to zoom in and out on the upper left-hand side, or I could search using the magnifying glass on the upper right for a specific place name or county name. As I zoom in, notice how this wonderful tool the geography gets more granular. So we started looking at state and then counties, but here on the left, you can see in the legend that that's dynamically changed now to show census tracts. Just know at the top of the tool, you could also look at numeric change in population with these dots that you can see on the left-hand side. Or you can look at both percent and numeric change by clicking on the button up here on the right. But I'm going to go back to percent change. I think that's a really clean view. So now if I look for places where housing may have been built, I'm looking at track 326 in Kings County, which shows the change in the number of housing units to be 840 units. If I needed to look at the if I wanted to identify this tract in the future, the geo ID, this is a unique identifier, it's a census code, is here at the bottom of this view. Clicking on purple tracts can give us a sense of change. Sorry, that was green. Clicking on one of these purple tracts can give you a sense of change in housing where the housing units may have declined, some more than others. So I think I'm just going to look at this one. And sometimes what you'll see here is that there will be a decrease in housing, but an increase in the number of group quarters. So this is one example where you can see an increase in group quarters from 0 to 2 in 2023. That shows a reclassification of some of the housing units into group quarters, which are defined as places where people live or stay in a group living arrangement that is owned or managed by an organization providing housing or services for the residents. Roughly 3% of the nation's housing is classified as group quarters. Those units include residence halls, skilled nursing facilities, group homes, prisons, and more, and they're counted as group quarters instead of individual housing. If you'd like to learn more about the housing unit change viewer, you can see our data gem, which is about 7 minutes and includes additional live demonstration. So here you can see these links have all been put into the Q&A for you to easily access. In terms of lots of demographic resources for housing, we've shared them in a table here. Once again, this presentation is currently available on census.gov/academy. And economic resources for housing. You can see here what data is available and when it was most recently released. Finally, our data dissemination specialists, like myself and Ileana, and our friends who are helping you in the chat, are available to ready to serve your organization, business, local government agency, school district, classroom, and more with presentations to suit your needs and interests related to census data. Contact us through census.askdata@census.gov or at 1-844-ASK-DATA to request a census data training. You can also find more short how-to data gem videos and online courses at census.gov/academy. Please sign up there to attend more Census Academy webinars. We will now take just a couple questions. I know we're running low on time that have appeared in the chat, and our housing subject matter expert, Caroline Short, will answer a few of them live. Lacey, would you like to raise a question from the chat for Caroline?
Thank you guys for the presentation. And actually, one question that we got in different ways was basically, Caroline, if you were going to look at housing data for your area, say you're just completely starting from scratch, there are a lot of different sources here. There's a lot of different tools we went through. If you were going to start, where would you just start from scratch if you just wanted an understanding of housing in your area?
Yeah, sure, Lacey. If I were starting from scratch just on general housing data, I would definitely start by looking at the American Community Survey. It has a lot of financial information as well as physical characteristics, which can be helpful to people who are moving to a new area and trying to understand the general housing makeup there. If you're looking for something that goes back a little bit farther, though, than 2005, I think that the American Housing Survey is also very helpful. And it also has a wide range of financial options, as well as demographic breakdowns. And so I think those are the two best places to start for general housing information.
Okay, great. And I get that each of those surveys have specific tools tied to them, but if you were going to go to a specific tool within census.gov, which one would you start with first? Where would you go directly?
Absolutely. So my favorite table to use when I'm looking at a lot of housing information all at once is the comparison tables. So CPO4 and DPO4, which specifically look at multiple years of housing data on the ACS. But I do know a bunch of people that find the AHS table builder to also be very helpful, depending on how long of a period you're looking for.
Okay, awesome. Those were the only two that I had that were general for the whole group. So I will turn it back over. Thank you, Caroline.
My pleasure. Thanks, Lacey.
Thank you, Lacey and Caroline. And those tables that Caroline just mentioned, DPO4 and CPO4, can all be found on data.census.gov. Thank you very much. And now, Lisa, will you close us out? We appreciate your staying with us.
Thank you, Jolie. This is Crystal. But yes, thank you, Jolie. Thank you, Ileana, and everyone who's on the line who stayed with us. Thank you for this information-packed presentation, your data scenarios, your data tool walkthroughs, the visualizations. Everything was wonderful. So thank you all for joining us today. Before we conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who played a part in today's webinar, our audience for spending your time with us this afternoon. We are very interested in hearing from you on how we are doing. So please take a moment to fill out the evaluation that will appear when you exit the webinar. This brings us to a close. Again, thank you for joining us today, and we hope you have a great afternoon.